Hello everybody, welcome to the TraderMerlin show. Hope you have a fantastic day for your Tuesday. It'll be a Trivia Tuesday kind of day. Yes, went with a little patriotic shirt. It's Veterans Day today. Hopefully all the veterans are here in the audience. Again, thank you very much for all that you've done. And if you're out and about today, see a veteran, buy him a drink or buy him lunch or something. He did a lot for us, and we should be thankful for that. I went and scavenged to try to find the 6 branches of the military, and I did find it. Found a cool little logo right there, and I thought you guys might find this one funny. Of course, I think most of us identify the different branches of the military here fairly easy to figure out who is who. Obviously, in the top left, we have U.S. Army. Bottom left, you've got the Navy, which is actually the Marine Corps, Department of the Navy, United States Marine Corps. Then you got the Coast Guard, U.S. Navy, Air Force, and look at that one over there. What is that weird looking thing with a space globule looking around it? That's Space Force. You know what? I think whoever designed the logo for Space Force was a Star Trek person, because let me bring up the original Star Trek logo for you. Oh no, it's pretty dang close. It's pretty darn close to the old Star Trek logo here. Beam me up, Scotty. Anyway, happy Veterans Day to everybody out there. Hope that you feel respected and honored today. All right, the big story of the day that just I think is, I took a lot of time to reflect and think about this story today because I'm a little bit nervous, as I've been pointing out, about OpenAI's aggressive spending with money they don't have. I'm concerned that a lot of these AI companies are circular. They're meaning that they are getting bought by Nvidia, but Nvidia is making sure that they buy Nvidia's chips and so forth, and it keeps this big old loop which drives prices up and up and up and up. So the news today was that SoftBank sold its entire position of Nvidia. Now, what makes this unique, not unique, but what makes it an interesting story is it's like this information was leaked today, right? So we can go over here and look at the price chart of Great Things, Earth Things. Hello, Dr. Bonnie. Hope you're doing well. Let's go look at Nvidia. Nvidia obviously had a pretty big down day today because of this headline story, down 2.96%. Well, when you see this news that SoftBank is selling, it makes you wonder if Michael Burry must have known something, because the reality is SoftBank sold this all last month. Last month. This is not like they did it today. It's not like they did it the day before, right? They sold this all last month, $5.8 billion worth. And I guess it brings up a couple questions in my head and maybe in yours as well. And if you do happen to, have questions on it, let me know. Yeah, right, Big Eb. It happened in October. Like who? And now you're telling us, right? They wanted to make sure they unloaded their whole position, and then they could tell everybody so that when it fell, which it did, they were in the clear. And, who knows? Maybe Michael Burry was on that panel and was part of that, making sure that he was holding Nvidia short as that announcement came out. So I guess the part that has me concerned is if you have the opinion, as I do and several others in this audience, that Nvidia is kind of the linchpin of all things AI right now. They're that the fulcrum that's making all the components to make the whole AI world run. Why wouldn't you hold on to that? And I guess the argument is that there's a lot of smaller cap AI companies that could get billion-dollar investments that could 100x, whereas Nvidia is probably not going to 100x from here. Maybe it 10x's, but some of these other small ones might benefit more. Still, I think that if I'm SoftBank, I'd want to keep some skin in the Nvidia game just to have some Nvidia. I mean, you got to keep the OG king of the industry. So in the release today, they were talking about how SoftBank needed this money for cash flow and operations, but really that they were looking to do other AI investments, which should come as music to the ears of many people here who are very bullish on the AI segment. As Big Eb said, SoftBank needed to fund it was actually $30 billion investment from what I read. I read $30 billion investment in OpenAI. But you look at that number, $30 billion, and you're like, man, that's a lot of money. But remember, we looked at the actual outlay for OpenAI, which is nearing $1.4 trillion. So here we are going, oh, wow, this is a monstrous deal at $30 billion for OpenAI, for SoftBank to invest in OpenAI. But where are they getting the other $1.97 trillion? No, 1.37, excuse me. That's a lot. It's a lot of money to shore up there. So I don't know. Seems very suspect to me, and it almost seems like foreshadowing. So if Nvidia was the king of this, the big mover in AI, which has been obviously we've seen this many times, as that keeps driving up and SoftBank sells Nvidia with the intent of buying into other AI companies, well, there's got to be others out there that have much bigger position, or they're just going into cash thinking that this whole thing might roll over, right? We don't know yet because they're not going to disclose what they've done, what their intentions were. until after the fact, right? No hedge fund, no market maker, no institution is going to tell you what they're going to do with their money before they do it. They will always tell you after that fact. They also saw their T-Mobile position. I guess that makes sense. I didn't see that one big yet, but T-Mobile, I mean, come on. Who cares about T-Mobile? Kenny says, this is the second time SoftBank has exited their Nvidia too soon. Last time was 2019. And they're well, timing is everything, right, Kenny? Timing is absolute everything. So this was, I think a piece that kind of caught the Magnificent 7 off guard today. You saw Nvidia was down 2.9+%, 2.96, almost 3%. But really, it's still in that uptrend mode. We had that beautiful sell-off, came right back down to this area of demand, and then started to rally back to the upside. For what I see here, I still see Nvidia moving higher. Until we get below 164, I see Nvidia moving higher and higher and higher. Even though you got this news that SoftBank unloaded their shares, who cares, right? On your next in your list, so on the Magnificent 7 here, you've got Tesla, 1.2% gain to 439. Again, nothing really technical here at all. The most interesting chart actually has been Apple, which I'll look at here in just a sec. Just from what it's done, it was really kind of a weird chart pattern. Yes, that's a good point there too, Big Eb. You can see right here at the bottom, you got a small E on the calendar. That means that on November 19th, which is next week, Nvidia will be reporting their earnings, which I'm sure will be one of the most highly anticipated earnings announcements of the year. I've got to be sure. Let me check my calendar. I am going to Texas to be teaching. Let me see here. Make sure that I have. That's the 19th. Just checking my days here. Okay, so I will do a show on the 19th. I will not be doing a show on the 20th. So 20th, 21st. So Thursday and Friday of next week, I won't be doing a show. And I should be able to do Monday, but it all depends on if I get back in time. I get back late in the evening on Sunday night, so it should be fine. Ollie says, big Nvidia saves the market. Do you think so? Remember what we saw from data from TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor. They had slowing demand for their chips, right? It's the lowest demand they've seen in a couple of years. Whoa, okay, that's not a good sign. Remember, Nvidia is using a lot of TSM products. I believe the number we looked at a while back was 97% of all the chips that Nvidia is using comes from TSM. So I'm conflicted here because remember, we keep hearing, and I hear this from internal people that work at Nvidia as well, that they cannot keep up with the demand for their chips. So if that's the case, you would think they'd be buying more from TSM. Now, they're not the only customer of TSM. That's true. There's many, many, many other customers. But you would think that the demand for chips right now would be at an all-time high as people are scrambling to make these GPU units to get in that AI space. So something seems to be amiss here. If TSM is actually showing a lack of demand for the core chips that make up these specialty chips, and that leads me to believe that maybe Nvidia is not going to be the saving grace, right? It seems like they've done pretty well every time. Let's actually go look at a chart of the last few earnings announcements here for Nvidia. So here you can see on the hard red edge, they reported their last earnings on whatever the day. This was August 27th, all right? So they reported earnings August 27th. They sold off the next day and actually had a pretty big down 4 days after that one. If we go back to the earnings before that, that was in May 28th of this year, right? They actually jumped up, hesitated for 2 days, and then just started a nice ascent. So those are two completely different earnings announcements. We can go back to the last one here in 2025, which is in February. On February 26th, they reported earnings. They jumped up and did nothing but sell off for the next week and a half. So I don't know necessarily if I would agree with that. We hear that NVIDIA is going to save the day. It may be that they're going to show that demand is dropping. Remember, we have a lot of increased competition here. More participants are jumping into this space. You've got Broadcom doing some cool things. Qualcomm's doing some cool things. You've also got AMD, Intel also trying to jump in the fray. So as competition comes in here, it may start to eat a little bit of the lunch of NVIDIA. So I don't know. Right now, the trend still looks great. Still making higher highs, higher lows. So all in all, it looks good for now. But I think at some point that's going to change. I think we're going to start to see that slip just a little bit. Dr. Benny says, come to Atlanta. I'd like to. I'm still working through some anxiety issues on travel. I don't know why, but we'll get down there. We'll get there. Rob says a down day. I'm kind of thinking that too. I'm kind of thinking that they'll probably gap up on earnings and then sell off. But it really depends what Jensen Huang says and what their numbers look like. If their numbers come out looking in line with what TSM's doing, which is slower demand, profit margins shrinking, then I would expect actually NVIDIA to maybe have a sell-off day, which may not be good for our markets overall. All right, let me run through our top 8 here, and then I've got a few questions. By the way, I'll show you the crypto world. The crypto was just a bloodbath today, almost everything down, and you can see some of these down over 13, 14%. Pretty big drops. Even though Bitcoin wasn't down that much, it was still a bad day, down 3.14%. But the good news for everyone is we're holding that 100,000 level, and I actually got a question from Rennie on this, which I will address right now. Rennie says, what makes the 100,000 level so special for you on Bitcoin? I don't know if I would necessarily say special. I feel like that's the wrong word to use. It's significant because of whole number psychology. It's just a massive round number. It's 6-digit round number, $100,000, right? It's something that resonates with people, and that's where you'll see a lot of people do buy points, right? That's gonna be I'll buy when it gets to 100. I'll buy when it gets to 100. So to me, that 100,000 is good from a couple different things. Number one, it's psychologically this massive whole number, $100,000 even. Love it. The other piece is, if you'll notice that once we moved above $100,000 on Bitcoin, which happened back here on May 8th of 2025, we moved above 100,000. We have not sold off, or we've not closed below it. And I had this conversation this morning in my crypto session, my focus class. When's the close? Well, each day has to have a close at some point. Right? There's only a 24-hour window, even though crypto trades 24 hours a day. With this, we have not had a daily candle close below $100,000 since May 8th of this year. We've definitely broken below 100,000, but we have not closed below it. And to me, that's why this number becomes so significant. It just feels like the forces that be, that once it gets underneath that they're driving it right back up or using it as a buy point. So to me, this is why I feel it's so significant. Special, not quite the right way I look at it, but it's just an impactful number that, at that specific price, I think you'll see a lot of buyers come in. So if we get a close below 100,000, that's when I'll really be like, oh no, oh boy, here we go. And there certainly is a lot of downside potential movement. I drew this line on here back on March 14th, where it said we'll never hit this level again, and that's going to be down around 76,000. Call it 75,000 is that level, and I may be wrong on that. If we do go through a 4-year cycle and things start to fall apart, everybody, we could find ourselves down at that level rather quickly if it does in fact cascade with leverage selling. Part of what we were looking at today in the crypto focus program was you can go out to a lot of different DeFi sites and get 100-to-1 leverage, like that, right? Very quickly, 100-to-1 leverage. So, if I saw this start to break, and let me just put myself on camera for this one, I will not use 100-to-1 leverage, right? I think that's insane. I just don't do it. But there's a lot of degenerate gamblers out there that will, right? They're going to max out everything they have. If we get below the 100,000 and it closes, that's probably a good time to go 100x leverage short. But remember, I think this market is very manipulated. I think what you're going to get is you're going to get people who jump on this thing short, and it would not surprise me to see a whale, institutions, force it down just so they can rip this thing back up and, melt the faces off anybody who's short on this thing. So I'd be careful. And I'm with Big Ep. Big Ep says I'm holding till 2030. I am too. I'm holding for the long haul, and I mentioned why. I know Chio, when I was in Downey speaking at that conference, I was talking about how I was seriously considering selling all my portfolio in September. And the reason that has changed is because of cost. It would cost me so much money from a transaction perspective to sell my crypto. And then I'd also have to pay capital gain. So I figure I'm just best off leaving it. So there we go. Hopefully it does not sell off. Mickey says Bitcoin final capitulation 97,000. That's not that far off. I mean, you do have this small little level I've had drawn here for a while, which is just the origin of this last big move up, and that is right at 97,000. So I don't know if I would call that capitulation. That'd be just a little bit of a sell-off there, Mikey or Mickey. Capitulation to me would be getting down to 75,000. That would be like an implosion of price, and that could easily happen. See, I still like the 97,800 area for a Bitcoin buy on the daily. Yeah, and that's kind of roughly where we're at with my cursor on here, so not bad. 3 lower lows and blast off. Think so? We'll see. I mean, I hope you're right, Mickey. Remember, I've got a bunch of Bitcoin, so I'm obviously biased to the upside here. However, I think this is where real traders separate themselves in the pack. Is I may be biased to the upside, but the chart is clearly telling us that this is a shorting opportunity. I hate to say it. It's just lower lows, lower highs, right? Now, if you're looking at the curve over the last 5-6 months, yeah, we're low on the curve, but which would typically make it a buying opportunity, but the trend is your friend till the bend at the end. I'm optimistic that 100,000 will hold. We've got to get a bounce that brings us up above this new pivot we have for today, which is going to be a high price of 107,465. That it feels like it's kind of become a new pivot level there for that one. So Rennie, that's my take on what makes 100,000 so special. Oh, you want to just look at the weekly? Sure. You can always look at the weekly. Always look at the bigger time frames. So same picture in my opinion. The only thing that's different here is that zone at 97 disappears, right? You have a much more pronounced one right around 95. But still, I think the same picture lasts. Once we get below 100, that will be now a new swing low from these lows we saw back here in June of 2025. So that's the important part, right? That's the important part. All right, back to my daily. And then I had a couple different questions. Since I'm on this topic, let's go. Jumbo sent this one in, and I really only have one solution for this. Jumbo on YouTube posted, is there a resource book site that specifically talks about chart patterns and what to do when you see those specific patterns? That seems to be a huge chunk in the trading game, and I really want to master that aspect. Yeah, I think if I was to be a mentor in this example, Jumbo, and kind of say, here's how I would approach it, what you need to do is you have to change your mindset right away. And I don't know what your perspective of the markets is, but remember, every chart pattern is a reflection of behavioral analysis. It's buyers, it's sellers, it's fear, it's greed wrapped up into one graphic representation. So forget about the company, forget about what they do. What you're watching on a price chart is merely the buyers and sellers jockeying for position based off the information that's present, known or knowable. So when we look at patterns tend to form throughout everything in life. I mean, why does broccoli always have that same look and shape? It's a pattern that's formed just because of the DNA of broccoli. But same thing with carrots or other vegetables, right? There's recurring patterns. And I would argue that it's the same thing that for the human body, right? Our wrist, our hands, there are Fibonacci ratios and golden ratios throughout our body that we can't explain, right? It's just divine intervention there. Patterns will form because most of us think in the same way. So behavioral analysis will say that, when this happens, the bulk of the people are going to do this. And that's where these patterns come from. Now, what I would suggest is this book here, and see Encyclopedia of Chart Patterns by Thomas Bulkowski. So to me, this is the best book out there. Yeah, cauliflower looks like a brain. Cauliflower is a weird one, isn't it? That's such a bizarre one. So you can see this book is really expensive. The Encyclopedia of Chart Patterns. It's like a $90 book if you want the hard copy one. Now, what you'll notice is if I go here to Encyclopedia Chart Patterns and just type in PDF after it, there are plenty of sites where I could get that PDF theoretically for free. Now, of course, when my book comes out, you shouldn't look for the free PDF version. You should just buy that one. Yeah, that's what you should do. But there is a lot of different ways you can get this book for free if you just want to throw it onto a Kindle or something like that. I have the physical version. I do like the physical book copy. The reason is I like to flip through pages. Fortunately for me, it was given to me many years ago. I'm a big fan of this book. I'm definitely a big fan of this book. And the reason I'm a big fan of this book is he runs through almost every chart pattern out there. Let's see if he gives us a preview. Let's read a sample. Hopefully it'll give us a little preview here. It's probably just going to give us the introduction. Let's go through, see how far it gives us. All right, so for example, I'll just stop right. Failures and focus, the big M, double top. So he's going through the big M pattern here. I'm trying to find a specific one. Typically what he'll do is he'll go through, okay, this is an ascending triangle. And that ascending triangle, here's how it looks, here's how it shapes, here's how it's supposed to look. And he'll give you the statistics like, if you have higher left peaks, well, it's 17% in a bull market, and in a bear market, it's 22%. So he really goes through all the statistics to back up these patterns and show their validity. And then also it does go through trading them. So he calls this the big W. That's not a big W, it's a double bottom. Right, so you got to know the basic patterns here. So double bottom pattern. He says from a bull market, in a bull market, it works 11 performance-wise 11 out of 39. In a bear market, it's 8 out of 20. So he'll give you the average rise, the trends, all that stuff, and breaks it down for you. I think that this is a really good resource to understand it all. Martin Pring is also one of the the OGs in the industry, right? He is the guy who, if you are going to get your CMT, Chartered Market Technician, which many of my guests have had, like Scott McCormick and Brandon Wendell, they have to buy Martin Pring's book. I feel like Martin Pring was in on the gig, but he's got a bunch of technical analysis books as well. And then, obviously, the Steve Nissen books on candlesticks are great, but I think they're way overpriced, and you can find out that information online for free, so I wouldn't buy Steve Nissen's book. Sorry, Steve Nissen. My bad. Let's see. Hold on, Brush. Let me get to that one in just a second. I'll just ask you for your book, and you just give it to me for free. Oh, will I? We'll see. Ollie says, Merlin, your book will be more psychological bias or just overall in the years of experience? I have multiple. So one of the books I've been working on, which is on the back burner, is basically my 28 years of experience and kind of what I think what it will take to be successful and how to focus on that. The one that I'm trying to finish is more about wealth creation, understanding personal finance. And once you understand personal finance, then the steps you take to get involved with the financial markets to grow your wealth, right? The other day when someone asked what my end game was, and I drew a little illustration that showed kind of 4 different methods of income streams. Your goal should be to set up multiple income streams, right? So I've got my W-2 job. I've got my 1099 jobs, which I have several of those. I have real estate that I'm working with as well as my trading account. So I have 4 real streams, and maybe I'll try to work on other ones and get a 5th stream up there. But that's wealth creation. But without money, there's no way that I could be investing in real estate or have a trading account, right? You have to have control of your personal finances first. So that's the one book. Second book is all about trading experiences. Yeah, 2030, yeah. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for kicking me in the groin on that one. I'll get there eventually. I'm dealing with a bunch of other personal issues. We'll get there eventually. And then the third one actually is a fiction book, which I'm excited for because I've never really written fiction. I think it's pretty good. Let's see what else we got. Wyatt says, trade chart patterns like the pros by Suri Dudella. I've never heard of that one, but hey, if it worked for you and helped you out, then then great. I'm a big fan of just watching the markets and looking for patterns and see when they work, when they fail. I mean, you guys know from my experience, I show you the stuff that I think works the best. I'm a big fan of ascending triangles, descending triangles, double tops, double bottoms. I do like flag patterns. I love candlesticks just because I can do it with one candle, right? I can run. The other day you guys remember we were looking at Microsoft. And Microsoft came down into this area of demand between these two. I didn't draw a zone, but you look at this, what Microsoft has done in this, right? Essentially in there. It's on snap mode, so it's giving me a hard time, but essentially in that little window there, it came down here on Friday and did a little spinning top. It's like, man, that's a great opportunity to buy it into demand. Well, spinning top isn't one of my favorite patterns, but if it's in a demand zone after an aggressive sell-off, this just adds more and more probability to a great potential trade here. So I think Microsoft was a great trade last week, and we also had a similar setup with a hammer formation on Meta going back to last Friday as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of individual candle patterns, and they don't always work, right? They don't always work, but when they do, they can be very, very powerful. Recommended by Jeff Manson when he used it with OTA. Cool. Nice. Well, good recommendation. Flags and pin bar reversals. There's a pin bar at the bottom. Pin bar. I don't know if I know what a pin bar is. You're showing me some new stuff, Oliver. I've never heard of a pin bar pattern. For my eyes, I'm just looking for hammers and shooting stars, right? Those are like the simplest ones. And again, when I'm running through different markets, like if I go through here, I think I've shown this to you guys before. My time under analysis doesn't do much. I'm not spending a lot of time here. So I'm literally going click, and it's like this one I'm actually interested in, right? So you look at gold right now. I didn't even know what this was. I just clicked on it, and basically what my eyes saw immediately was this. You have this little area right here above current price. It actually tailed into today this overhead supply zone, which is the origin of this last big move down. That's between 4,135 and 4,175. I got about a 38-point zone. Well, today we came right up into it, and it looks kind of like a shooting star after a nice big rally in price. Well, that leads me to look at this one for tomorrow as a potential short opportunity down below 4,100. That was not like a long time for me to make that analysis. Super fast, super easy, just based off of what I saw in the price chart. Again, I can just keep clicking through here, and I'm just looking for shapes or setups that look really appealing to me. Nothing in my top 8 that I would look at. But Could I go through here and now run through my crypto stuff and look for opportunities? Sure. I mean, you got a shooting star on Tron right now, and that's actually into an overhead supply zone in a downtrend. Great. Sorted above. Yep. So over time, and for Jumbo out here, great question. I appreciate you sending this one in. It's about experience and seat time. What I would recommend, and this is where it really helped me out, I'm not sure if I can do this in TradingView, but with TradeStation, what I did is I imported, you can go to TradeStation, create a watch list, and import the entire S&P 500. So now you have 503 different stocks in your watch list. What I would do from there is I would remove anything under $15 to get rid of that. And I'd get rid of anything that didn't trade 1.5 million shares or more. Anything below that, get rid of it. So now my S&P 500 turns into more like an S&P 350, maybe 375. The other thing I will do with TradeStation, it's a really nice feature, I can create sector. I can filter by sector, and I would go through and I would delete anything that was biotech and pharma. Those would get removed. So now I'm down to 300 stocks to choose from. Once I have that list, I would simply just arrow down and look at that price chart, just like I was doing earlier. I would literally go like this and just go, nope, nope, nope. Nothing of interest. None of these look interesting to me from a trade perspective at all. This looks terrible. Right? I found nothing on these so far that just jumps off the chart at me. And there's no reason to stop and try to force it, right? I'm going to click and just keep going until I'll stop at the first thing that looks appealing. And honestly, none of this looks appealing right now. Mind you, this is a crypto watch list. Actually, those last two, Avalanche and Aptos, look actually okay from short perspectives, just because they're rolling over today, but not great. Nothing that's super exciting. But this is how I spend a lot of my time ripping through charts. Now, it's funny. I think, Naum, you asked me about Dash. Why is Dash surging? And that's basically on the private, right, Big Eb? The crypto looks bad right now. Here's Dash. Dash, you're looking at a buy opportunity right around $45 on Dash. It's fallen like a rock. This thing was over 140 just about 8 days ago, and now it's trading at 70 or 67. Classic manipulation. What else? Is there anything on here that looks good? I haven't found one chart on crypto where I'm like, yeah, maybe I'd buy that or short it. And none of these look good. Yeah, garbage. I'm going to just scroll right past it. These are all just nice downtrends. Then you go to the Magnificent Seven, right? Is there anything here that might be appealing? Unfortunately, this Microsoft, which we talked about on Friday, that train's already left the station. This thing's had a great run over the last couple of days. Google is right at all-time highs. This is a little bit tricky because, you get that breakout, a close above this all-time high, which we're at right now at 292. That leads to blue sky, and all of a sudden you could see this thing rip. So I would not be looking to short Google at all. Amazon, no. I may look at Meta as a potential buy here. And the reason is, look what's happened the last 3 trading sessions for Meta. Long bottoming tails, long bottoming. It looks like 3 hammers back to back to back. It tells me that every time this thing tries to sell off, buyers come in. So I would look at it from the perspective of a hammer formation. I'd look to buy on a break above today's high, which is 629.56, right? And as you say, low on the curve. Well, at least low on the curve for the past, 2 months, not for the past year. It's actually middle of the curve. What else do I got? Tesla. No, Nvidia. And that's it. So, what sucks is a lot of this just does not look very appealing right now. I don't see anything that was jumping off the screen. I did make one trade today, which, I don't know. I just wanted to have some skin in the game, and I think it's very risky. Can you guys guess what I traded today? Any guesses? You guys tend to know me pretty well. I'm curious what you guys think. What would I have traded today? What would I trade today? Silver? Nah, not enough volatility. Even though silver has been a beast lately. Silver's been wild. Not Apple. No, not oil. Hey, Liz. Nailed it. CoreWeave. You talk about catching a falling knife. CoreWeave. And you guys can see why, right? No, I'm done with MicroStrategy for a little while. MicroStrategy makes me real. I'm just nervous that whole thing's going to come crashing down. Only Trezang. She got it too. CoreWeave, yeah. And part of the reason is, if you look at this here, I can already tell you where I was interested in buying. I was interested in buying in that yellow zone, right? And it came screaming back down to it today. Here's the trade I made. So I sold the 85 puts, and I collected $1.51 worth of premium, which isn't great, but, it's Tuesday. So you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've basically got 3.5 days, and I'm going to get about 1.8%, actually 1.9% rate of return for 3.5 days. Now, it's pretty darn risky. You know, the big risk here is we get below this zone, and the bottom of that zone is $83.31. If we get below that, this thing could have a significant fall in price, right? It's not good. And their earnings weren't that bad. Their earnings actually, they beat earnings expectations. They were supposed to, they thought they'd lose 39 cents, and they only lost 8 cents. Not bad. Oh, of course. I'm definitely gonna be careful with that one. I'm not going all in on these things. You know, I like to spread mine around over multiple trades, but this is the only one that I saw today that was in a demand zone. Bad news, falling aggressively. You know, it was down 16% on the day. That was just that was a bad one. You know, and part of what I love to do every day is I will go out here to this filter, and I've created my own little filter. If it's above 15, I need something above $15. It's fallen more than 10% and has over 1.5 million shares traded in the average over the last 10 days. Those are the filter pieces, and there were a few that were in that category, right? You can see you had CENX, which let's see if I can scroll this over here and show you those. There's CENX today, which is down 13%. BTDR was down 14%. Cores down 10%, but none of these have the liquidity that I want. CoreWeave had liquidity, right? No, Andy, I never mortgaged my home for that. Two totally separate universes there. No, absolutely not. No, staying away from that. But CoreWeave was one that I've been watching. I've been trading quite a bit, and you know, the option premium usually is pretty good on that one, but it's very, very, very risky. What was a good? I don't know. PubM. Not on my watch list. Pubmatic. Yeah, my guess is. Let's see what volume was. Oh, it actually has pretty decent volume. Oh, actually, no. No, it doesn't. So I there's a reason this would never make my watch list, Trizang, and that's because the volume. If you look, this thing does less than 1 million shares traded a day. Yes, today it had really high volume, it was 7 million, but before that, it wouldn't even make my radar. And if you look at the chart, this thing is just looks like it's on its way to the glue house. Looks pretty bad. What about calls on CoreWeave buying? Sure, you could buy calls on CoreWeave at that level as well. Yep. You could definitely buy calls on it. I'm going for the I don't know if necessarily the safer trade, but I'm going for the less premium. And if I can own CoreWeave, fine, I'll just start selling calls against it. But could I buy calls directionally? Sure. If I really felt super convicted that we're going to bounce out of this level, yeah. PubM wouldn't even make my radar. So I don't know what the news is. Typically, this type of stuff, if it's got super low volume like that, it doesn't make my watch list. So don't care. You know, and really, if you made money on this today, why? Right? You shouldn't have made money on this one. And I say why you shouldn't have, because you shouldn't be holding it. Look at the chart. The chart since August has literally done nothing. You're literally just it's doing nothing. It's a penny stock. You know, it's $5-6. Forget it. And so it had a big move today. I'm sure it had to do with their earnings announcement, and what they said going forward. But yeah, it wouldn't make my watch list. Oh, don't tell Michael Anthony. He's a big fan of Pfizer, PFE. And we talked about this one quite a bit. And I think last time Michael asked about it, the chart looked like this, which you should just stay away from it, right? But now it pivoted. It's now making some higher lows and higher highs. So, okay, maybe Pfizer has turned that corner. The trend is certainly looking okay at this point, right? Looks pretty decent to me for Pfizer at this moment in time. You guys are throwing all kinds of names out there. I was thinking about selling. Are you talking about Pfizer, Steven? Now I'm confused because we're looking at all kinds of different symbols. Now Pfizer only $25. Many think healthcare stock tripped it. Yeah, you know what? I've been looking at UNH. I wanted to get back. I wanted to get back in UNH, and I guess I missed that boat today. I was. I just totally forgot to look at this one. I was looking at maybe trying to sell those 300 puts. You know, we've fallen quite a bit. This thing just back on Tuesday, October 28th. Had a high price of $381, and now we're down $60 off that. I mean, that's a pretty almost a 20% decline in a couple weeks. Oh, Oracle. Yeah, Bonnie, I sold mine at $315. So MicroStrategy, and I took a pretty significant loss on that one, but I'm happy that I'm out. Obviously, yeah. I mean, this thing, what a bloodbath, and it just makes me real nervous. I mean, there was actually a question that came in on this one as well. Let me read this question to you. This is from John. John says, I held MicroStrategy. I cut the beginning of the message off because it was too long. But John says, MicroStrategy, I held on for a long time just because the option premiums were so sweet from selling calls and puts. Finally got fed up with the long downtrend and dumped it. To this day, I still wonder, what does MicroStrategy offer that makes sense to essentially purchase Bitcoin and a higher price than the asset? Why does this make sense to anybody? Well, it's a great question, John. Like, if you really want to play Bitcoin, then buy Bitcoin. Just go to buy BTC USD. If you don't want to take the risks of holding self-custody, then buy IBIT. It tracks it perfectly, and it's got very low fees. If you want to be an active trader of crypto, don't go to Coinbase, don't go to Kraken and be an active trader of crypto. Trade IBIT, right? Just trade the underlier. The reality is you're looking at a leveraged play because of all the things that MicroStrategy has done, from all the debt issuance that it did to buy more, and therefore could get a greater rate of return on its capital. So that's what it was offering. It was offering leverage. But now they've diversified into preferred shares and all kinds of other interesting products that are allowing or are requiring them to commit to like 8% preferred shares. I forget what the preferred share symbols are, but they've got a preferred share out there that they have to pay 8% forever. Well, if Bitcoin has a big sell-off, they may not be able to make that obligation. So yeah, exactly. Microsoft has become kind of shady. I agree. I certainly didn't want to hold MicroStrategy long-term, but for a while, it was just kind of oscillating back and forth, and the premium was so good. Man, it's phenomenal. But, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword sometimes. Seems like Saylor is scraping the barrel to find some more ways to sell. He is, Liz. Absolutely. Microsoft only has $8 billion in debt versus $85,000 in Bitcoin value. Right, but Mickey, and its value is tied up in Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin does drop significantly and they're leveraged on this one, then MicroStrategy could be hurting pretty bad. And remember, they may have to liquidate too to cover their debt obligations. That, I think, is the big concern that a lot of people are like, if Bitcoin continues to fall here, let me bring it up for you. If Bitcoin continues to fall, do we see a liquidation of MicroStrategy? And I think I put a line on my screen. From my understanding, and this may have changed because he's bought some more recently, MicroStrategy's average price is right around $66,384. Now, I'll have to update this number because, who knows when he's always buying more and more. But the question I have is, if we get down there, does that force MicroStrategy to sell their Bitcoin? And this is what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Michael Saylor and his house of cards. I'm worried about Coinbase and Fidelity, who custody those Bitcoin for him, not having it. Just like your bank does not have your money in the vault. That money's been lent out, and I think that's the same thing that's happening with the Bitcoin on these exchanges. And if that is true, we could see a very, very, I would say, a disastrous black swan type of event. But I think that's a long shot to have happen. Let's see. Steve, in my opinion, there are big boys trying to put Saylor in trouble, forcing Bitcoin down to crush it. Could be. But remember, would you guys say that BlackRock, who is the largest issuer of an ETF in the world, would benefit from a higher price of Bitcoin or a lower price of Bitcoin? Right? Look at the biggest players in the world that are holding it and see who's going to move that market. And I would contend that BlackRock is going to benefit from a higher price in Bitcoin. And the reason for that is the higher Bitcoin's price goes, the more attention it gets around the world, the more the average Joe is going to go, I got to buy some Bitcoin, and they're going to go buy IBIT. And when they buy IBIT, BlackRock makes money. So I would contend that if price continues to move up in Bitcoin, that's way better for BlackRock. Now, if BlackRock wanted, BlackRock could go out to any one of their agencies. They have tentacles everywhere in the media and start issuing shady reports on Bitcoin to get people to panic and dump and unload their Bitcoin. But that could cause chaos and money to flow out of their Bitcoin holdings. It could cause problems for them. So, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to get that kind of manipulation. Even though, I think Saylor's a fruitcake. I think he's just an off his rocker, weirdo guy. But hey, whatever. Drive the price of Bitcoin higher. I'm happy for you doing that. But as Steven says, a lot of prominent people, not Saylor fans. Yeah, I mean, hey. Oh, Liz, that's mean. She says, and at that point, we'll have Elizabeth Warren saying, I told you so. Oh, that would be the worst. Absolute worst to have that happen. But Elizabeth Warren just keeps saying that it's used by drug dealers and terrorists. That's what I just staunchly disagree with. Really, 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 really bad. Anyway, All right, so that was our Bitcoin part. I know we're scatterbrained. We're all over the place. Did I get my questions? So I had John's question on MicroStrategy. I had Rennie's question on 100,000 Bitcoin, and I had Jumbo's question on books and resources. So good. I got my materials covered for today, and I showed you that little trade that I made on CoreWeave. So I guess I'll finish on running up through the top here. Oh, Liz, it would be terrible. It would be terrible. Yeah. That would be terrible. Okay, so we know what my stance on Bitcoin is here. I'm not feeling very comfortable with it simply because it's trending lower, man. It's irrefutable if we look at this price chart. And I think maybe even if I put a moving average on it, the moving average is now pointing down, right? We obviously like to see this thing moving higher and higher and higher, but the moving average, I believe this is probably a 20. Oh, it's a 50. 50 period moving average looking down. If you look at the 20, it's going to be pointing even more sharply down. Right? I mean, this is not good because there's systems in place out there. There's systems in place out there. Thank you, Wally, for shifting it from the doom and gloom from me to Liz. I appreciate that. That's great. I think everyone would agree that a lot of these AI or algorithms or system trading are using moving averages. And then the whole goal is if it's below moving average, stay short. Well, look at that. I mean, this looks pretty clear cut to me. We're well below the 50 and the 20 period moving average and drifting lower. I don't want it to go this way, but that looks like the direction we're headed. So we already talked about the NASDAQ a little bit. Look, things look fine for the NASDAQ. Let me get that moving average out of here because it's distracting me. The yellow box can go away with that huge hammer pattern on Friday. Great follow through today. And if you follow the rules that I use, or sorry, great follow through yesterday. If you follow the rules that I use for trading a hammer formation, you would have been long on Monday and probably held through till today, although we did come right up in that overhead supply and of course hesitated today on the NASDAQ 100. Dollar index didn't do squat today. We were pretty much unchanged. Well, down 0.16, so not that big of a decline. All in all, I still like the trend that the dollar is in. We did smack our head against that 100. I think we'll probably challenge that one again here soon. Russell, up 0.08, technically no big deal. Not a lot of follow through on this hammer formation. I was expecting there to be more, but there wasn't. S&P up 0.22%. I'm not sure why these are out of order right now. I mentioned that I do think you'll see it hit these all-time highs or get very close to that yellow box and all-time highs by the end of this week. So it's Tuesday. I got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get to at least, how far would it have to move? Let me do some math here. It'd have to move at least 0.43%. Pretty sure we could get there. To make an all-time high, we'd have to move up 1.2%. I think that's definitely doable by the end of the week. I think a big factor here is going to be the government shutdown. If they can get that done and finally just move on, then I think we'll be above all-time highs on the S&P 500. Yeah. Right, Big Eb? 1.2%. I mean, that's a yawn. For crypto, that's like a 5-minute candle. 5-minute candle in crypto is 1.2%. Wow. Okay, we already looked at gold. Gold, honestly, keep an eye on gold for a short tomorrow. Remember, if the government shutdown ends, there's going to be this exuberance for equity markets, and that'll be a risk-off event, which means that stocks are going to rally. Risk-on event. Stocks are going to rally, which will probably take us to all-time highs, and money might flow out of gold, and it already has a little bit of a shooting star pattern right into overhead supply. So keep your eye on this one. Yeah, Rob, shooting star into supply zone. I'd be watching this one tomorrow as a potential short opportunity, and it would kind of line up perfectly, man. If we can get the government shutdown to end, stocks will pop, gold will sell off, and it's already got that pattern there. It looks great. 10-year, 0.66. Obviously moved to the upside, but nothing really that interesting here. Because we closed outside of this yellow box, I'm taking it off. To me, once you close outside of it, it's over. So we are now going to just remove a bunch of these lines. The top one there in red is the one I want because that's the high point from September 25th, right? That's the next challenge point, which is 4.199%. Shutdown ends, huge income. Yep, I agree, Mickey. And we'll see. We'll see if it happens, I think it's a matter of time. They will settle, but it's just really annoying. And then crude oil. While it did have a great day up 1.51%, all in all, I look at this and go, well, what's the chart really doing? It feels strong because it's not making new lows, but that trend is still showing weakness, even though we rallied hard today. So until we close above that yellow box in the top, which is going to be above $63, I'm still got a short bias on crude oil. That's it. Sorry. That's what I'm thinking. What about all the piled up data that will be released? Yeah. So what'll happen there, Kendall? And it's a great question. This all is up to you on how you want to handle that. When you hear that the government shutdown has ended, okay, they're not going to dump all the reports at once. They'll release them. You'll just check the calendar. We'll obviously look at it here. But you'll see on certain days you're going to get a lot of data released. It really depends on how aggressive you are. If you're somebody who is risk averse, I would say scale back your trades, tread lightly, and wait for the data to all be released and digested, and then let the market have its trends. Because what you could get is, I would say, 2 to 3x normal volatility, right? Your beta could jump significantly because one day you could get a great GDP report, next day you're going to get horrible CPI report, next day an amazing unemployment number, bam, 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 bam. You know, it's going to be like popcorn trades of the week because there's just so much data out there flooding this market and causing all that kinds of volatility. So I would say be very careful when the government shutdown ends until all the data is out and things get back to normal. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go back to your earnings calendar since we did have SoftBank report today. Of course, they having blowout numbers, and their numbers look fantastic because they're making huge profits on OpenAI and Nvidia. For Wednesday, you've got Tencent Media. Cisco Systems, one of the bigger names there because it's a member of all three of the indexes, S&P, NASDAQ, and the Dow, although very lightly weighted on all three of those indexes as well. You have Allianz, BYD Motors. You have Siemens Energy as well. And then on the Forex front, if you're looking at economic calendar announcements, you can see a ton of FOMC members speaking tomorrow. It's just a plethora, for anybody here who is a big fan of the Three Amigos, I think a plethora of announcements. You've got Williams, Paulson, Waller, Bostic, Mirren, Collins, all speaking tomorrow. So we know what Mirren's going to say. Rate should be zero. Rate should be zero. Well, I'm more interested in what Williams has to say because he's not quite sure that we need to cut in December, and there's, I think, Waller as well. So that's your main stuff for the U.S. will be the FOMC members speaking. You also have a bond auction happening tomorrow, and that's pretty much it for the U.S. markets. And I think that's pretty much it for me. Anything else? Any last minute questions you guys got before we wrap up for today? I told you I did a short show yesterday. Did a little bit longer show today. Do I have any other questions? No. We already talked about the 50-year proposal. Chio says, don't forget to hit the like button for Merlin if you like today's show. I just hit it myself. Thank you, Chio. You are always my cheerleader out there. I do appreciate that. Yeah, if you like the show, I always appreciate the likes, and especially the new people. I know we've got some new people watching on a regular basis. I see a lot of new names here as well. So welcome, you newbies. If you are new, hit the little bell icon on YouTube, and that will alert you every time we do the show live, which is generally every day. Where was the appointment? It was in Lake Forest. I had to go all the way down to Lake Forest, and I barely made it in time. Is Netflix going to split on the 17th? Yeah, so one way you can find that out, it's actually pretty cool here, Bonnie. If you go to TradingView and you go NFLX, you can see at the bottom there's a little S. So E's are earnings, lightning bolts are news, and then the S is its split. So it's a 10-to-1 split on the 17th, correct. So there you go. You can see that all that information right there. And, remember to look at these splits, too, because sometimes it'll be a 10/1. Other times it might be a 1/10. 10/1 is great. A 1/10 is horrible. That means this thing is so low in price, they're trying to bring it back up in price to prevent from being delisted. So we need to own before that day. Correct, Andy. Yep. So if you take it home, let's see. I would take it home on the 16th. Right? So you take it home on the 16th. I think the split actually will happen on the 17th. So you need to take it home on the 16th to get that split. There you go. W pattern demand zone about that. Is your TV a subscription? And if so, what level? Oh, TradingView. It is subscription. I don't know what level. I did the basic one, right? I just want a couple of charts. Like I like to have multiple layouts where you can do different screen setups, but I just have the real basic one. I don't see the need. I think it's like $100 a year or something like that. If you are new and you haven't used TradingView, you can use it for free, but I'll tell you, wait for Black Friday because their Black Friday sale is huge. It's a big discount to start your subscription. All right. Cool. That's going to do it for me. Sold put 1114. Would get it then. Well, yeah, options make it tricky. Make it much more tricky. One more stocks on my list. They're going to have a huge Black Friday sale. Exactly. They do every year. Yeah, they do every year. And if you haven't purchased it yet, wait for Black Friday. It's worth it to wait. I know hot hit on Lucid, 10-to-1 or 100-to-1. I don't know what Lucid's one was. I'm not a huge fan of Lucid, Lucid Group. So their split was 1-to-10. And that means that for every 10 shares you had, you got one. Ooh, not good. Not good. That basically means they're trying to prevent themselves from being delisted. But look at the chart, right? The trend is your friend till the bend at the end, folks. If you can't tell me what that trend is, then you need glasses and a new career. This is bad. You know, you look at Rivian, which is that competitor space, and its trend isn't amazing, but at least it's making higher lows. It's been making higher lows since April. Now, albeit they're not significantly higher, but now it's made a new pivot high. Rivian's looking great right now, looking real good. They're so pretty. That you like the Lucids, Bonnie? I don't know. There's something about them. It's okay. I mean, look, if someone gave me a Lucid, I'd probably sell it and buy something else. But I don't know. I'd rather have the Rivian. I'd rather have a Tesla or Rivian. Yeah. Yeah, I know. 40% up last month. I mean, this has been phenomenal. Look at that. Look at that chart. And you know, who knows if this is exclusively because of the sales numbers due to, you know, the tax credits. And a lot of people believing that's what it is. So they came out with pretty decent earnings. Their earnings, they were supposed to lose 73 cents. They only lost 66 cents. Been ripping ever since. So wonderful. I was doing the wheel strategy on Rivian for quite some time, but yeah, rocking now. Tesla's faster. Yeah, but you know what? I don't need fast. I don't care. I don't need to drive that. I mean, I'm an aggressive driver. I'm an extremely aggressive driver, but I don't care about a car that does 100 I don't need that acceleration. I'll just get tickets. Now, you'd rather have a Cybertruck? No, Bonnie, not a chance. I think that Cybertrucks look really stupid. And again, I think you kind of fall into one of two categories, right? You either think the Cybertruck is amazing or a piece of garbage. It looks like a garbage can to me. I don't know. Again, if someone gave it to me, I would take it, but not going for it. And then you look at Tesla, and remember, the reason Tesla looks like this is it's not a car company. Tesla is not I'll fight with that one. Tesla is not a car company. Tesla is a technology company. There you go. Done. All right, that's going to do it for me, everybody. If you guys have comments, questions, feedback, things you want to discuss on tomorrow's show, it'll be Wednesday, hump day. If you guys would like to cover anything, just email me, TraderMerlin@gmail.com. It's on the screen right there for our 12th of November show. Should be fun. I think markets will pick back up. A lot of people took today off. A lot of people had today off for Veterans Day, so go do something good if you're a veteran, and hopefully you have a fantastic remainder of your day. I will see all of you on tomorrow's show. Take care, everybody.